In this video, I'm going to show you how to compose and send an email in the PAWS system using the class list feature. And I think you're really going to like that because it makes it very easy to communicate with your instructor as well as with other students in the class. I'm also going to show you how to attach a document to your email and how to open an attachment that your instructor, for example, may send to you. So let's get started. So I'm in PAWS and I've got it opened here, and let's see, I'm going to go into one of my classes because I'm going to use the class list feature. Okay, so I'm going to open, what have I not used here? I'm going to just open a traditional web-assisted class, and of course I'm on the home page for my course. And I think to myself as I look across the menus, what is it I'm trying to do? Am I trying to assess somebody? Well, no, I'm trying to communicate. So I'm going to click on the little drop-down arrow, and I'm going to click on Class List. This is a really handy feature. As I look through the list of students, I can see their username, which is only good, that's their email address, you know, within this system. You don't even have to know at blah, 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 you know, because no Gmail or Hotmail or any of those other emails are going to work from within this system. So if I want to email my instructor, my teacher, for example, then one thing I'm going to pay careful attention to is the wording along this side where it says student, and I'm going to make sure that I find where it says teacher. Okay, now another thing that I'm going to pay attention to is that I have 2 pages of email addresses here, and so I may want to go to the second page. If so, you just click the drop down box and select the second page. One thing that I like to do so that I see everybody is change how many people I see on an individual screen. Now you can, you know, whichever you prefer. If you have more people listed on a screen, it may take slightly longer to load, but I like to see everybody. Okay, so I want to send an email message to my instructor, and so here I see the teacher account. What I'm going to do is simply put a check mark in that box next to the person that I want to email. If I want to email this to several people, I would just click, you know, each person's name. So I can send it to an individual or to several people. And at the bottom of the screen, as well as at the top, I'm scrolling up and I'm scrolling down, you'll see email. Now I have the teacher selected. I'm going to click email. And this is going to open a dialog box so that I can compose an email to my instructor. So let me just point out something that might be a little bit important. Up at the top here, it's populated this email. The to line has my name on it. And you'll see this kind of strange email has my username, and it has at ucourses.com. Well, listen, you don't ever have to worry about typing that at ucourses.com. Since this is a closed email system, you can simply type the person's user ID. It knows that it's going to go to an at ucourses.com email address because this is a closed email system. It can't go to anything but an at ucourses.com email. Okay, so that's a little tip or trick. You see that I can add a carbon copy or a blind copy if I want to. You know, it just kind of clutters the screen so they don't show that by default. Now, here's the part that people overlook, and it's so important, folks, and I really wish you would use it, which is the subject line. You know, oftentimes I get an email where I've emailed a student and I've said, this is very important Chapter 1 homework. And when I get the email back, I look at the subject line and it says very important Chapter 1 homework. And then when I open up the assignment, it's nothing about Chapter 1 homework. It's about Chapter 7 homework. And you oftentimes don't mention that in the body of the email, and it's very confusing. And then what tends to happen is the student then gets upset and says, you said this and you said that. Well, I did. And I did because you said Chapter 1. And you're like, well, I'm not even talking about that. Well, see, I don't know that. So in email, we have to take the time to be professionals. This is job preparation, and we need to communicate like you're going to communicate in the job that you want, not the job that you have right now. Your education should come flowing through in your words, in your emails. Okay, so take the time to make a good impression because this is representing you, right? So in my subject line, I'm going to give an example subject as, how about, we're talking about Chapter 1, question about Chapter 1, Part B of the writing, I'll say this, of writing assignment. Okay? You know, now, depending on your class, it could be something totally different. Now, down here towards the bottom is the body of the email. And I was able to set up some preferences on mine where my signature is already populated. But yours will probably be blank like this, and that's fine. Okay, here's a very important tip for success. Should I give you the tip for success, or should I tell you how not to do it? Do you already know what I'm going to say when I tell you not to do it? I bet you do. I bet you do. It's just a matter of taking time to do it correctly. Here's an example of a poor, and let me label this example, poor example. I can't do Chapter 1. I'll be lucky if I get a space there to look like that. 1B writing. You know, that might be an email I get. Sometimes it'll go just a little bit further, but typically not. What do you think about the person who sends that to you? They were perhaps in a hurry. Do you think they have a lot of respect for you and for your time? As someone who's asking a question of you and asking you to write back to them in a clear way to explain something, do you think that has communicated that they want you to speak to them in a much better way than they're willing to speak to you? You know, if you really think about it, this communicates disrespect. And I have had students say, well, listen, in my work environment, it's very fast-paced, and this is how we talk, and that's just the way it is. Well, first I want to remind you that, you know, your education is maybe facilitating a promotion or a new or different or hopefully better job. And so this is not the way that you want to continue. Your education needs to represent you. It needs to precede you in the discussion. You want that person to say, wow, this is a person that I want to help, that I want to speak to that person as respectfully as they spoke to me. So what if we took the time to call the person by name? What if we even greeted them? Hello, Dr. Joan, comma. Isn't that nicer than not even, hey? That's how it comes across. Hey, hey, look over here. Hey, right? We don't want to be talked to like that. I don't want to be talked to like that. So, you know, look, I'm not asking you to write me the War and Peace novel. I just call me by my name. You know, call your other instructors by name. Call your classmates by name. Say, hi, Sam, Fred, Tom, you know, address them by name, okay? Hello, Dr. Joan. I am having a problem with Chapter 1, Part B, writing assignment. When you ask us to include page numbers, do you want them at the top or bottom? Now, in this email, I have not used the Queen's English. There are no these, the, you know, thous or anything like that. It's a basic email, but here's what I have done. I have used proper capitalization. I have used punctuation, right? I have respectfully asked a question that's very clear, very concise. I didn't ask only a question. I provided a sentence with some background information, what I'm working on, right? I've included a subject line. You know the last thing that people don't take the time to do, and this is very important. They'll hit that send button without telling me who they are. Now, I also need to know what class you're in. I have a lot of classes and they all have writing assignments, and I'm not sure what we're talking about. Maybe you could even begin this email by saying, I am a student in your leadership class, and I am having a problem with Chapter 1, Part B. Do you see how this is going to speed up the answer that you get? You might be saying, no, this is slowing me down. This is going to, this is going to take so much time. Well, if you're working on your cell phone, I can see where it's going to take time. You may have to take a moment, sit down to a proper computer, and compose yourself and send this. The response that you get is probably going to answer your question very quickly and without further discussion. The first example, the poor example, I'm probably going to email you to ask you another question. You'll send me back another email that I can barely understand, which means I'm going to have to ask you another question. And then after about 3 emails, you're going to be very mad at me. So then you're going to call. And if you're an online student or even whatever kind of student, web assistant, whatever, if you call me late on a Thursday night, the next time I'm going to be in my office will be Monday. And so you will have lost 4 days. Why? Because you did not want to take the time to address me by name, to tell me who you are, what you're working on, and what the problem is. To me, it's a fair trade to get some instant, practically instant. Now, I sleep at night, okay, so I'm not going to email you back at 2 o'clock in the morning, but you're going to get a pretty quick response if you just communicate with me the way that you want me to respond to you, okay? So, I'm not trying to beat up on you. I just want you to know really how to help yourself. So now as I continue, and I realize we're talking here for a while, I'm going to be respectful to myself, and I'm going to say thank you. How about that? Sometimes you can say thank you for any help you can provide. But I'd be happy with a thank you. And this person's name, my student account, is Z McGrory, and that's really nice. Now, maybe I also want to say, maybe you have a system problem and you want to include a picture of the error message as it appears on your screen. That can sometimes help me resolve a problem very quickly. But if you have a file, and I have a little, file over here, make sure you have closed it. In other words, don't have it still open where you're working on it, because what tends to happen is it emails me only the last time the file was saved. So if you have it open like this and you're still working on it, that's a recipe for disaster. You need to close that file, and if you want to save it, you need to make sure that you do so. Now that it's closed, and I happen to have it here on my desktop, all I have to do is drag and drop it into this area. See how it's attached there? I had to scroll down so that I could see that. If I have more files, I can just keep on attaching files. Now, if you're in Dr. Jones' class, do not email me your assignment, because I will give you a 0 if you email it to me rather than put it into the Dropbox where it belongs. If you're telling me that the system is not letting you upload it, it's because you're submitting it late. So there's no sense in emailing it, because your email is going to give me the date and time that's going to show that you were late submitting it. So this is, kind of a rare example that you would send me an attachment, but a good example of when you might send me an attachment is an error message that's on your screen, and maybe you do a screenshot of it, a picture of your screen, and you send me that picture showing an error message, okay? So anyway, that's how you attach something. And maybe there are other instructors who do accept homework this way. You have to make sure, that you're communicating with your instructor. You can do that. I'm all set up. Now what do? Send. Sent successfully. Got the confirmation down there. And that's how to send an email using the class list. Now, if I wanted to send another one, how did we do that? Well, we just looked through the list. Notice that that is still checked. That is a common mistake. So if you, if you want to send to somebody else, make sure you uncheck that box and go on to the next person. Now, I'm going to very briefly show you what that email looks like when I receive it. So I sent the email to my instructor, Dr. Joan, and here now I'm Dr. Joan, okay? And here's the email. Question about Chapter 1, Part B, and I can see that just right away. Whoops. And so now I'm going to open up that email, and I say, oh, okay, let's see what's going on. Z. McGrory has a question about Chapter 1, Part B. Okay, yeah, she is a student in my leadership class. Okay, that's right. Oh, the page numbers. Okay, well, that's a common question, and, you know, I'll let her know. Oh, I see she sent me an attachment. To open an attachment, all I have to do is click on the file. Now, common thing that people do is they just click on open and go from there. I encourage you to save the file somewhere to your desktop, something like that, so that you can then retrieve it successfully and open it. Now I say that and I say, you know, this is a new system. I always save those files to my desktop, but it didn't ask me this time. Okay. Maybe we'll make an exception. But let me say this. After I've opened it, do yourself a favor. Save the file someplace where you will know where it's at and you can open it up at your convenience. Okay, so that's how you open an attachment. You simply click on it and you're good to go. When I'm done finishing the email, this email, I can reply. If there were multiple people on it, I could reply to all. I think I'm going to go ahead and reply. Now, in this case, I am not going to change the subject line because I'm continuing the conversation on this topic, okay? If I'm going to start talking about something new, then I need to put a totally different subject line up here. So I'm going to talk to this person as respectfully as they talk to me. Hi, Z. McGrory. Great question. Regarding page numbers for your Chapter 1, Part B writing assignment, you can choose to put the page numbers either at the top or bottom of the page. The most important thing to me is that the pages are well organized and easy to follow. Thank you. See how easy that was? And I'm glad to talk to somebody in a respectful way. They've talked to me respectfully. That's all we're going to do. Click on send. Send successfully. And we're good to go. So I'm going to close this, and I hope this was helpful. Some tips and tricks and best practices. A little bit long, but we also covered how to include an attachment and how to open the attachment. And we'll talk a little bit more about other ways to use email in the next video. Thanks a lot.